صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. From the gainful or the profitable trades, we spoke about paradise. We arrived at the point where we spoke about Al-Hur Al-Ain, and that the fact that they were concealed and they were hidden as an indication to a person that has ghira or has regard for their women folk, a protective regard to observe the hijab. And then there is a clincher after this. There's a verse that lets you know of all these bounties and elements you have been bestowed, all these bounties that you have been given by the Creator. He says, جَزَاءً بِمَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. جَزَاءً بِمَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. In some instances, Allah, when He speaks about the people or the companions of paradise, He will say عطاء and hisab. Sometimes He will say it was ata, given. Except when He speaks here about as-sabiqun, as-sabiqun, He says about these foremost people, He says جَزَاءً بِمَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. As in to say, these people were those that excelled in this world. These were the ones that had this profitable trade. Then He goes on to add a few more points. He says, لا يسمعون فيها لغوا ولا تأثيما إلا قيلا سلاما سلاما. This is very important. One of the worst things that we encounter on a daily basis is the media bombardment of Islam. And in fact, do you know the main story, just to give you an idea of what goes on in this world, the main story on yahoo.com.au, which is in association with Channel 7, this is the main story of all the things happening in the world. The main story was a story of a blind dog that could see for the first time and could see his owners. That was headline news. That was the main story. The whole world, there's a crisis in Greece. The world's falling apart. There are people being killed by mercenaries posing as Islamists. Okay, people that are out there, deviants, killing people. And do you know what? If you notice, the last execution that the Dawash did was in an amphitheater, a Greco-Roman amphitheater. Do you imagine? All the things the Americans could see, they could not see that Shakespeare had opened up again. New play taking place. People are being executed, and no reconnaissance, no drone flying overboard could see there's an amphitheater with all these people being lined up to be executed. They even had a crowd. All that was missing was Caesar in the middle giving the thumbs down. That was all that was missing. No one could see it. However, they all paid attention and took notice of a blind dog that could suddenly see. This is the world you live in. This is the news you hear on a daily basis. And news that haunts you. News that has everyday good citizens that do right by not only themselves, right by the people around them. Law-abiding citizens that help others, and then you're being put in the same picture and incriminated with those that decapitate people because they put them to represent you on the news. Have you ever noticed that's who they pick out? Whenever they put on the news, they'll always put the typical or the same types of people. They'll get the Anjem Chowdhury from Leicester in the United Kingdom. This guy is someone, honestly, you should Google. This guy has an audience of 5 or 6 people. Yet they'll always put him on the news, and all he ever does is praise the killing of British soldiers. And they have him on the news. In order to show, because if you notice all these extremist parties, like we have One Nation here, they've got the British National Party, the BNP in the UK, and now it has evolved to the EDL, it's now called the English Defence League. They've evolved to take a stern and a staunch stance against Islam because of these people that misrepresent Islam. Now, the narration here in connection to the verse, Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam says, وَيَفْرَحُونَ فَلَا يَحْزَنُونَ أَبَدًا. That in paradise, people will be joyous, they'll be happy, and they will not be saddened. They will not be grieved. وَيَضْحَقُونَ فَلَا يَبْكُونَ أَبَدًا. They will laugh in paradise and they will not weep. There's no more sadness, there's no more weeping, there's no more grief, there's no more sorrow, there's eternal happiness. وَيُكْرَمُونَ فَلَا يُهَانُونَ أَبَدًا. That you are honored in paradise and you are not humiliated, you are not degraded. This is the verse in the Quran. It says, لا يسمعون فيها لغوا ولا تأثيما. They will not hear vain or sinful discourse. They will not hear anything that harms them. إلا قيلا سلاما سلاما. They will only hear nice words. So imagine a world with no more Fox TV, no more Fox News. Could you imagine a world where you don't see Bill O'Reilly? I mean, honestly, you don't see Hannity and Combs. You don't hear, well, Stan Zemanik's dead now, but you don't hear Alan Jones anymore. Could you imagine a world where you don't hear these voices that cause fitna, that cause problems between mankind? These people that highlight what's going on. You don't have to read an article by Piers Ackerman anymore. You don't have to see this anymore. Instead, there's no more disgrace, there's no more humiliation, there's no more Wahhabis. A world of peace. A world of tranquility. This is what paradise is. And the most important factor, as I mentioned last night, it is eternal. This is the most important factor of paradise. أصحاب الجنة هم فيها خالدون. That they are there for eternity. Because they suffered in this world, and over there they achieve eternity in paradise. Imagine you have been given a short-term lease in a place and then told to go out. You know, people that move from house to house. In this booming economy, the housing demands for people to purchase houses has caused people to move from place to place because houses are being sold and purchased wherever you go right now. There's such a great demand. And you're moving, there's no, not only there's no security, you don't feel at any point that you have reached a place you can call your abode or your home. You're always moving from place to place. As for paradise, it is eternal. You're eternally there. Even when Adam alayhi salam, when Adam and Eve were cast down from the garden, Taban, the garden, the paradise that they were in, is not the paradise that's promised to the believers. This was a worldly paradise. However, it was a paradise. It was a garden. And they used to frolic in there and they were free to do what they want. When they were cast down from paradise, this paradise, Adam wept for 40 years. He lived, he was grieved for 40 years after being cast down from a place like that. So imagine the place that Allah Azza wa Jal has promised that one will not grieve in, nor will they be sorrowful. Alaykum as-salam wa rahmatullah. Now, the problem when we talk about the gain in this world, we have to look at what is the loss. If I do a profitable trade, a gainful trade, I attain paradise. I gain paradise. But if my trade, my business is at a loss, what is the alternative? See, if you look in the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal says, Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. As-sirat, meaning al-sirat, one path, or the one and only. When you have the alif lam before a word, it indicates that it's talking about a specific path. Not all roads lead to Rome. And we have the intelligence. We have been placed on this world, in this world, to discern right from wrong. And you're not Catholics here. You're not just told to believe. With Islam, you are told to research other faiths. You are told to question and read and find out and question what you hear. You are not told just to follow blindly. So you have the ability to discern right from wrong. And you're not Wahhabis. You're not being told not to use logic. You are allowed to use logic. In fact, you use logic in order for you to arrive at what? At the result that you have. Because we know it's only one path and one way there. Taking the scenic route won't necessarily get you to the right place. Now Allah Azza wa Jal, when He speaks about this place in Surah Al-Waqi'ah, at the end when He speaks about the muqarrabin, He says, فَأَمَّا إِن كَانَ مِنَ الْمُقَرَّبِينَ, He says, فَرَوْحٌ وَرَيْحَانٌ وَجَنَّةُ نَعِيمٍ. That these muqarrabin, they are the ones that feel this respite, this rest, this tranquility, above the rest. They're the ones that made the profitable trade. Now let's take a look at business in this world, or the trades, or the things that you do in this world. What's the best you can get in this world? We're looking on a general basis. Now let's not be too excessive. Generally, I could get a nice home, a nice car, a nice family, and that's probably the best gain in a general sense. We're not talking about people that have yachts and helicopters on them and beachfront condos and God knows what. We're talking about general sense. This is the best. What's the worst end of the deal? And we're talking about generally. We're not talking about the worst possible. Generally, the worst you can get is some shack or shanty that you live in, and as we say in Arabic, the number 11, your legs, that you walk around. That's it. All you do, that's the worst possible scenario. However, generally, it's not like that when it comes to the hereafter. The problem when it comes to the hereafter is if you do not get paradise, if you lose paradise, there is only one other alternative. There is no middle world. It's either a gain, a profit, or it's a loss. Firstly, you need to take into consideration Allah Azza wa Jal created mankind to have mercy upon them. There's not a reason Allah creates you and says, I've created you so you can go to the fire of hell. Those that go to the fire of hell choose. And remember, I made that mention even if you look at the most staunch and ardent atheist, like Richard Dawkins, when he was asked, remember, I mentioned this just to keep this point in your head. When he was asked if someone could prove that God exists to him, would he believe? He said, if they prove that he exists, even then I would not believe in him because I don't love him. In other words, even if you can prove it to me, I will not accept. That they refuse to accept this. People make choices. People that go out there and kill others, they make choices in their lives. You know, sometimes people say, oh, this person's crazy. A crazy person and a psychopath are different. You know, when they tell you someone's crazy, a crazy person doesn't cover up what they do. A crazy person is someone that walks through the street with a knife, stabs people, slashes people and keeps walking, and he's holding the knife and he's probably skipping through the street and singing nursery rhymes. You say, this guy's mad. However, a psychopath kills and covers up what he does. So he knows what he's doing is not right. He knows what he's doing is not wrong. Is wrong. This is why it's covered up. This is a choice that people make. People make a choice. If I lose paradise, the alternative is hellfire. Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam says, كل نعيم دون الجنة محقور. That every blessing you can think of, that you can be given, and it's other than paradise, it's nothing. It's worthless. If you look at all the things that paradise consists of, nothing can even be made up to it. Nothing can be, it's incomparable. Nothing can be weighed up to paradise. Imam Al-Qadhim alayhi salam says, إِنَّ أَبْدَانَكُمْ لَيْسَ لَهَا ثَمَنٌ إِلَّا الْجَنَّةِ فَلَا تَبِيعُوهَا بِغَيْرِهَا. For your body, he says, there is no price except paradise. Do not trade, do not sell your body for anything other than paradise. Don't make this useless trade. Don't make this poor trade. Don't sell yourself for other than paradise. So the alternative to paradise should be our primary motivation, should be what keeps you in line, knowing that if I don't get this, I get that. If I don't get eternal joy and eternal salvation, I'm left with eternal damnation. Wal-'iyadhu billah. Now when we speak about this perishable trade, or this perishable business, those that trade for the hereafter, there are several verses for us to reflect over. Firstly, the verse here is discussed with actual business and trade in this world, when it's time for worship. You know these people that turn away from what is in this world and what is worldly. Taban, just to reiterate something I've mentioned previously. Becoming a believer does not mean you lose this world. What it means is you detach yourself from this world. You can have what's in this world, but don't attach yourself to it. Logically, why would I attach myself to something I can't keep? You know, could you imagine someone rents a car and then takes it down to his mechanic and says, listen, you know what, could you put a chip in it? I want to give it more horses, make it a bit better, put mag wheels on it, tint it. Is that what you would do with a rental car? No need to attach it. I use it for its purpose. Same with a home. You're not here forever. Use it for its purpose. Do your time, you're finished. So anyway, here in Surah Al-Jum'ah, it says, وَإِذَا رَأَوْا تِجَارَةً أَوْ لَهْوًا انفَضُّوا إِلَيْهَا وَتَرَكُوكَ قَائِمًا قُلْ مَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ مِّنَ اللَّهْوِ وَمِنَ التِّجَارَةِ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الرَّازِقِينَ. Here Allah Azza wa Jal mentions something that people did at the time of the Prophet. That when they saw something worldly, they moved towards it and they left the Prophet. And then Allah Azza wa Jal, beginning of the verse, He puts tijara before lahu. He puts business, the trade, before He puts lahu, play. But the end of it, He says, مَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ مِّنَ اللَّهْوِ وَمِنَ التِّجَارَةِ. To emphasize, either of them is play. Either of them is useless. Either of them is joy when it's being compared to what Allah Azza wa Jal has for you, because it says, وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الرَّازِقِينَ. Allah is the one that sustains you. My dear brothers and sisters, how many people have you seen in your life that travail, that work hard day and night, and they're doing it tough. They're just hardly getting by. And then you see another guy. Honestly, in high school, I've seen guys that couldn't, not in my high school, other people in other high schools, you see guys that cannot write even their own name. They can't even spell. And then you find out later, what happened to Fulan and Fulani? Oh, he's a millionaire. A millionaire. How did he become rich? Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. How did he become rich? How was it that he gained all this fortune? It was with the sustenance of Allah. Allah sustained him. Allah gave him wealth. There was another story which happened recently. I may have mentioned it, but not on the Mambar. About that young boy at school who found a system He just wanted, listen to what he wanted to achieve. He wanted to play games while he was in class. You know how they block certain sites. So he couldn't play games. He worked out a way to hack a program where he can get out of the system and play whatever he wanted without anyone knowing. He worked on this program and he started to help people, sold it here and there. People were using it. He put it on forums. He said he was making about $15,000 a year. That's it. Then out of nowhere, because what he had worked out was a form, because it's some kind of package or Trojan horse, something that is used in order to hack into the system. So AVG, antivirus, comes up to him and says, listen, by then he's only 25 years old. They say, listen, we would like to purchase this program you have made. And not only that, we want you to remain the CEO of the company in order to run it. How much are they offering? £40 million. £40 million, just out of the blue. This is how sustenance comes in. You don't know how it's going to come. Your job is just to work. What happens and how it works out is in God's hands. And this is how you are tested in this manner. Allah Azza wa Jal speaks about those that sell this world. Sell the next world for this world. He says, أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ اشْتَرَوُا الضَّلَالَةَ بِالْهُدَى فَمَا رَبِحَتْ تِجَارَتُهُمْ وَمَا كَانُوا مُهْتَدِينَ. When he mentions these people that trade, he says, أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ اشْتَرَوُا الضَّلَالَةَ, that they chose error over what? Guidance. They chose error over being guided. You know, some people, you show them this is right. They see it's right, but they take the other route. They can see it, it's visible. There's no one that says, for example, there's no one that says, I see this as right, unless they're what? They're crazy, they're mad. You have to be, and I'm talking about reasonable people. There's no one that has reason that can see black as white or white as black. No one can walk outside, no reasonable human being, no sane human being, no rational thinking human being can walk outside right now and tell you it's daytime. These people choose what? They choose error over righteousness. They choose error over guidance. Allah Azza wa Jal says, so they've bargained, they've traded, they have made their trade at a loss, and therefore, by not following the right direction. They have not followed the right direction. This is a big problem. People that can see right from wrong. I remember once when I was at work, I was discussing religion with a Lebanese Christian. And the final answer he gave me, he said, look, I accept that my book, the book I follow, the Bible, is got a lot of fabrications. I concede what you're saying is right. He said, but if I follow Islam, I will lose everything I have. Many people are like that. They say, I can't afford to lose everything that I have. Little does he know, you as Muslims living in Islamic families lose a lot too. How often in many Islamic families has the religious child been overlooked for... One sec, sorry. How many times in a family has the religious child been overlooked for the academically advanced child? I've seen many families where they have a child that's religious who's good, has manners and good morals, and then there's the other child who's got some degree and whose nose is floating 10 feet above where he stands because he's got this tall poppy syndrome. He thinks he's above everybody else, and the parent always stands next to his son. He says, oh, this is my son, so-and-so, and this is the doctor. And he'll stand next to him. Or this is the engineer, or this is the lawyer. And gives him preference. Even a Muslim, when they follow the righteous path, are affected. The whole thing is about patience and endurance and forbearance. Allah Azza wa Jalla in another verse, when He speaks about these people that make this trade, He says, أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ اشْتَرَوُا الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا بِالْآخِرَةِ. That these people that have chosen dalal over huda, error over guidance, they have purchased this world for the next. He says, فَلَا يُخَفَّفُ عَنْهُمُ الْعَذَابُ وَلَا هُمْ يُنصَرُونَ. That the punishment of Allah Azza wa Jal will not be lifted, will not be any easier upon them. And there is no aid for them. Then it says, أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ اشْتَرَوُا الضَّلَالَةَ بِالْهُدَى وَالْعَذَابَ بِالْمَغْفِرَةِ. Then he says here that they have traded what? Al-Adhab bil-Maghfirah. That they've chosen. If you look at the messages, just the message of the Prophet, when he called people to God, when any Prophet came to call people to God, he called them to Maghfirah. He called them so they can be pardoned by God. They can turn to God. They can be with God. They chose against this. And that was his whole role. Did you ever see, you research the history of prophets, you read anywhere, even historical texts, non-religious historical texts, ever hear of a prophet of God? We're not talking about fabrications that exist against them. But where you see a prophet of God looking for what? Looking for this world. اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون. You never saw a prophet come up to the people and say, listen, I'm going to tell you about religion, but you know what, I wouldn't mind a few bullions of gold you got there, a few of those gold coins there, a few of the ladies there. There was no prophet that came out like this. On the contrary, when the prophets came out, they came and they were giving. Even when you watch those little Christmas cartoons or those Easter cartoons they have about Jesus Christ, how is Jesus dressed? He's dressed like the Pope, eh? He's wearing gold and everything. No. He's dressed in shabby clothing. He rides on a donkey. He looks impoverished. He calls the people. This is how prophets came. They came to the people and they called them to God. And they were there to help the people. They were there and they would humble themselves towards the people. They only rose against the tyrannical. They only stood their ground against the haughty and the self-conceited. If a prophet was around today, he would not slobber at the feet of the corporations and the businesses, as you see many world leaders do today. On the contrary, he would stand with the impoverished. He would stand with those that were treated in an ill manner. It says, in other verses, it says, وَإِنَّ الَّذِينَ اشْتَرَوُا الْكُفْرَ بِالْإِيمَانِ. So we move from one level to another. Where God mentions it in different methods, then he says here that they have purchased disbelief instead of belief. He says, here's the point, the most important point. He says, لَنْ يَضُرُّ اللَّهَ شَيْئًا وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. That in other words, God doesn't need your worship. When Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam is arguing and proving to her enemies, to the enemies of God, about the usurpation of her rights and of the rights of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, after she's giving the argument, in the end, within the discussion, she says, وَإِن كَفَرْتُمْ وَمَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَنِيٌّ حَمِيدٌ. That if you disbelieve and every one of the creation turns away, everyone leaves Allah, no one wants Allah, Allah is not going to get lonely. It says, Inna Allah Ghaniyun Hamid. Allah is needless. Allah is Hamid, meaning Allah is praised without you praising Him. Allah isn't like some people think the attributes of God, some of the attributes are acquired. They're not acquired. His attributes are intrinsic. They're His. So He is praised whether we praise Him or we don't praise Him. Allah is praised. Allah is needless whether we worship God or we don't worship God. This is for us. For us to get peace of mind in this world and eternal happiness in the next world. And then when it speaks about them, it says, وَلَبِئْسَ مَا شَرَوْا بِهِ أَنفُسَهُمْ لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ. This is with that trade. That لَبِئْس, he's speaking about evil or the worst that they have. مَا شَرَوْا بِهِ أَنفُسَهُمْ, this is the worst for which that they have sold their souls, but only if they knew. Because they're so taken up in this world. This is what happens. So don't think people are blinded. People know. People know. When you bring an argument forward, they know. When you sit there and you tell them, whether you're talking with an atheist, whether you're talking with an unbeliever, whether you're talking with a Jew or a Christian or a Wahhabi or a Sunni or anyone from the other sects, doesn't matter who you're talking to, they know. They know. Simple arguments, you put them forward, they know. وَاسْتَيْقَنَتْهَا أَنفُسَهُمْ, that they are certain of this, they have yaqeen of this. And this is why the term that's used is kufr. Kufr is rejection. Rejecting what they know. They know this. And that's why when the argument's put forward, they know, and that's why they turn away from the argument. This is why they try and use other ways of answering you. Now, they do not realize, because they're too caught up in this world. They're too caught up in following their desires. They're too caught up in following what you see, all the things that we see. I like you. We're all the same. We're all humans. We're on the same boat. We see things that we desire. Every now and then we need a reminder. This is why it's encouraged. When you see someone doing something wrong, you are encouraged when you see someone doing wrong to tell them not to do wrong. Why? In case when you go wrong, they pick you back up. This is how we work. It's a system. We remind each other constantly. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to keep our reminders often and to keep our remembrance of Him in our hearts and our reflection over the bounties that Allah has given within us. And we ask Allah not to take us from this world until He is pleased with our actions. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin.